Trump's trade policies, the end of the dollar and American hegemony? The world has changed. In 2025, the United States, led by Donald Trump, has launched radical trade policies that may mark the end of the global order as we knew it. The US, once the unquestioned superpower, is now at war with multiple nations on the trade front. And while America isolates itself, the rest of the world is reorganizing. In this video, we'll dive deep into the impact of Trump's policies on the global economy, the trade war, the rise of de-dollarization, and how this could lead to the end of the dollar and a new world order. Is this the end of US dominance? Could the dollar, the king of currencies for decades, lose its power? Have you ever wondered how Trump's trade policies impact your local economy, or even your investments? In this video, we'll break down the policies, the numbers, the direct and indirect consequences, and draw connections to current geopolitical events. Buckle up. In 2025, the United States finds itself in an economic bind. And Trump has chosen to open a new front, the trade war. With China, the European Union, and even its traditional allies, confrontation is inevitable. It all began back in 2018, with the first tariffs on China, but this time, Trump is going even further. On April 2, 2025, Trump announced 10% tariffs on imports, affecting nearly every sector, particularly technology and automobiles. According to economic analysts, this could reduce the US GDP by 0.5% by 2027. To put it into context, the US-China trade war in 2018 already cost American businesses $100 billion. Now, Trump is introducing a tax on everything. A breakdown of the most affected sectors by these tariffs: automobile, electronics, agriculture. For agriculture, American producers have already seen a 15% drop in exports to China in 2024, with losses exceeding $30 billion. China immediately retaliated by raising tariffs on agricultural products and precious metals. The EU, although a traditional US ally, imposed tariffs on American agricultural products and technology. Now that we understand the broader scope of Trump's trade policies, let's dive deeper into the very trigger of this global transformation, the ongoing trade war. How did these tariffs come about? And what were their immediate effects on both the US economy and the rest of the world? De-dollarization, the decline of the dollar as the global reserve currency? But the consequences of Trump's trade war don't end with tariffs. As we've seen, these policies have set off a chain reaction across the global financial system. One of the most significant being the movement toward de-dollarization. With countries increasingly abandoning the US dollar, we must now examine how this shift is unraveling the very foundation of the global monetary system. By the end of 2024, the dollar represented only 57.8% of global reserves held by central banks, a level not seen since the 1990s. Source: IMF, April 2025. China and Russia are the leading players behind this de-dollarization. In 2024, the Chinese central bank announced it had diversified its reserves into euros and yuan, replacing an increasing share of the dollar. But that's not all. Oil transactions, traditionally dominated by the dollar, are increasingly being traded in yuan or euros. In 2024, Russia launched an alternative payment system called SBFs. And countries like Iran and Venezuela are increasingly making transactions in gold and cryptocurrencies. Dynamic infographic, showing the evolution of global dollar reserves and emerging alternatives. Impact on the dollar. An IMF analysis suggests that if the trend continues, we could see the dollar lose its dominant role in global trade by 2030. This would mean that borrowing costs for the US could significantly rise as they would rely more on foreign financial markets. But the consequences of these shifts don't stop with just the dollar. As the world moves away from the US currency, cryptocurrencies and new reserve currencies are emerging as viable alternatives. So, what role do Bitcoin and other digital assets play in the future of global finance? In response to this shifting landscape, new alternatives are emerging. Cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, are now being seen not only as a tool for individual investors but as a serious contender in the race for a new global reserve currency. But is it enough to replace the dollar? Or is there more at play? Let's explore how these digital currencies are shaking the financial world. By 2025, Bitcoin has surpassed $100,000 per unit, a remarkable surge from 2023. More countries like El Salvador and the Central African Republic have made Bitcoin their official currency. Cryptocurrency transactions have exploded, representing more than 5% of global transactions in 2024. Cryptocurrencies represent a direct threat to the traditional banking system, and it's only a matter of time before several countries start adopting these currencies for their reserves. In 2025, the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, have formed a coalition to create their own reserve currency called BRI Coin. Their goal is to reduce their reliance on the dollar. Behind this move is a desire to overthrow the global economic order and free themselves from American influence. While cryptocurrencies and new reserve currencies may be the financial innovations of the future, America's diplomatic isolation is also playing a huge role in this global shift. Let's now take a closer look at how Trump's policies are driving the U.S. away from international cooperation and what this means for global governance. The impact of America's diplomatic isolation. Another consequence of Trump's policy has been the growing diplomatic isolation of the United States. By 2025, the U.S. finds itself in a position where its influence in key international organizations, such as the UN, WHO, and WTO, is increasingly contested. The U.S. representation at the UN has dropped by 25% in 2024, with votes on major resolutions being blocked by their traditional allies. The U.S. officially left the WTO in March 2025, severely disrupting international trade agreements. Meanwhile, China has strengthened its leadership in forums like the G20 and COP28. The U.S., by withdrawing from the global stage, has left a vacuum that other superpowers are ready to fill. With these developments in mind, it's clear that we are not only witnessing a shift in economic power but also the rise of a new world order. The U.S. is retreating from its central role, while emerging superpowers are ready to take the lead. So, what does the future hold for the global financial system and geopolitical dynamics? Let's reflect on the consequences of this monumental shift. Towards a new world order? Trump's actions in 2025 are not just having immediate effects, they are reshaping a new world order. The U.S. is retreating from its role as a global leader, while alternative powers like China and the BRICS are positioning themselves as dominant players. The end of the dollar as the global reserve currency, is it inevitable? Perhaps. But one thing is clear, the world is shifting towards a multipolar economic and financial system, where the U.S. is no longer the sole superpower. This shift will have profound consequences for our economic future. Thank you for watching this deep dive. If you found these analyses interesting, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. The future is being rewritten before our eyes, and you won't want to miss the next steps in this historic evolution. What's the next major move in this new world order? Let us know what you think in the comments. See you soon.